Take off my watch. I don't want to put it. Dr. Anwar suggested that I focus on sort of the economic aspects, but Huntington isn't really much of an economist. He is much more of a emphasizes what he calls cultural aspects, but he kind of emphasizes non-economic and to some extent even non-political. It is true, as I think one of the other speakers have pointed out, is going to point out perhaps, that he concentrates a lot on the economic and political implications of these cultural differences, and I think it's working. I'm just not standing in the right place. And the possible conflicts and so forth. One example is what we have been hearing about a lot is called the Asian Challenge. Not just Huntington has been concentrating on this, many others. The great success of starting actually first with Japan and then other Asian countries is seen as a sort of a cultural triumph, particularly in the part of Japan, almost like it was a deliberate attempt to challenge the West sort of culture on culture in the economic arena rather than in the military arena. It certainly has been presented as a combination of Western technology and economic institutions that has been very successful. A lot of terms have been coined for this thing, like Neo-Confucianism, which I would say is where they're combining Confucian values with what's one fellow called Confucian corporatism, which really just refers to a sort of a partnership between business and government. And Asian democracy is sometimes with democracy in quotes usually, because that's supposedly where you have one party rule or perhaps one man rule. But particularly developed towards, the government taking a directing, controlling role even in economic development, following a strategy and mobilizing the business sector, particularly in following that strategy. The strategy being what we in economic development call catch-up growth, which focuses on rapid growth of the capital stock, particularly appropriate for countries that are capital poor, lesser developed countries we call it. And doing it through high saving rates, forced saving rates, 20, 30% of GDP, a lot of these, almost 40, I think, in China. And of course, even the importation of foreign capital, foreign financial capital, but also physical capital, attracting foreign firms into your economy, and importation certainly of foreign technology. And this sort of requires some other things, including high investment in human capital, education and training of the workforce, and shifting of labor out of agriculture. High saving means restricting consumer demand, which means capacity tends to outrun domestic demand, which kind of creates what you might call a need to export. And at any rate, that's what they do. They focus on development of the export sector in order to expand into foreign markets, and that's why this is also called sometimes export-led growth. If you're focusing all of your capital and new technology into the export sector, your domestic sector tends to become, kind of lag behind, which usually requires you protected by, with import tariffs and so forth. All of that is a common strategy for most of these countries, maybe all of them. And it's been pretty successful. By the way, it's been very successful. For 30 years almost, you could say, the GDP of these countries that we're calling the Asian tigers has been doubling. GDP is doubling about every 10 years for the last 30 years. And explanation, which certainly includes Huntington's explanation, that it has something to do with their culture in particular, and also that it's going to be necessarily a big challenge for the future. The one immediate problem you have with the thing about it being the Asian culture is a lot of these Asian tigers aren't even really in the same culture. Indonesia is one of them, as a matter of fact, and Malaysia, and I believe Huntington makes them Muslim cultures. And then we have the fact that many other countries, many other cultures have grown with the same strategy, starting with Imperial Germany around 1880 to World War I, and Soviet Union in the 1950s. Several European countries also, Greece for a while in the 60s, Italy here more recently, a number of Latin American countries here recently, notably Chile, has been using the same strategy. The political regime in some of these other countries has been similar, like one-party rule or that sort of thing, but not all of them have been. The culture is not the same, certainly not according to Huntington, although when you look at what's supposed to be unique about the Confucian culture, you do see a lot of mention of things like their values being for thrift and diligence and discipline and personal responsibility, and what's sometimes called collectivity, that is a sort of family and group loyalty above individual interests. That's about the only one that's, I would even say, is non-Western. And I kind of have a feeling if you ask people from other cultures whether they were thrifty or diligent or that sort of thing, they'd probably say yes. So I don't know how much the culture really matters. I'm not sure how much the political system necessarily, how critical it is. The strategy seems to have worked for a lot of countries. You're going to stop me, and I wasn't even there.